great British explorer George Mallory was to die on Mount Everest, was asked why did he want to climb it. He said, because it is there.
So for a second, I just want you to imagine a world where you have blinders on and earmuffs day after day. What would you not see? What conversations would you misunderstand? Because what's actually happened is nature has programmed us that way. It's something called habituation. Now, habituation is defined as a psychological learning process involving a decreased response to a stimulus after repeated exposure. So in essence, you hear something, you see something, you smell something, but over and over again, your senses numb to it. That's that kind of blinders and earmuffs. And this is pretty valuable. If you're in a construction zone and there's loud noises and that creates a startle response, if you're walking on those high beams, you want to be startled all the time. So you want to get focused on just what's changing. So it's a valuable coping mechanism. It's got some flaws. Why is it important? Well, I kind of went down this path because someone asked me, as an entrepreneur, where do you get your ideas? What inspires you to get an idea? And I think part of being an entrepreneur is finding a problem worth solving and make sure it's big enough and important enough to go after. And that essentially means opening up your senses to the pain of, well, just fill in the blank. So maybe it's on a cold winter day in Paris, you can't find a taxi. Or maybe it's you're a young banker working crazy hours and at night you can't order any good food in London. Because those are the founding legends of the conceptual pains that birthed Uber and Deliveroo. And habituation, solving problems, isn't just about finding your next tech unicorn. It's, my chief product officer, Craig Holt, always talks about habituation. He says, our product team, you have to go through this process like a customer for the first time. It may be your 50th time. It may be your 100th time. But you have to go through it like it's your first time and get annoyed and fix it and then go back again. So if habituation is what will allow you to walk down with a pebble in your shoe and dull the pain and keep walking, the question is, what would actually let you remove the pebble from your shoe? And the opposite of habituation is sensitization. And that's really defined as repeated exposure to a stimulus, resulting in amplification of the response, right? So that you actually get more, you feel more and more rather than less and less with a repeated exposure. So you actually hold on to that initial feeling of pain or discomfort and don't let it subside. Now, how do you do this? I would say you channel your inner Hulk and get angry. Or you channel that inner critic and you stew on something. Maybe you imagine, well, this is bad, but how could it be worse? You let your imagination go, and when your emotions are up and ready, you get ready to, you're in a good mindset to actually solve a problem. Now, it's a bit of mind over body, and I'm sure another TED speaker can talk about how to sensitize. I'd rather just skip ahead to the benefits of sensitization, and then hopefully that might inspire you to learn a little bit more of how you can sensitize the world around you. So I'm going to put theory to work here, and by way of example and just for fun, let's sensitize ourselves to an environment. You could pick a school, you could pick your bedroom. I'm going to pick something as mundane as office space and meeting rooms. Now, couple caveats. I am not an architect. I am not a product designer. I love leading teams. I love organizational behavior, but I actually have no specialized expertise other than, like billion people today and billions of people before me, I spend 40 hours plus in an office space. This is actually the office I spend a lot of time in. It's our Glendale office, and we built this out in 2010, and we had a blank floor plate. There was some bathrooms, some elevator shafts, and we did everything from scratch with a really generous TI budget. And I remember when I moved in, we were so happy, and we thought, oh, this is beautiful and functional, and the meeting rooms were statistically done with the right frequency, with the right number of people, with like phone booths so they don't take up the rooms, et cetera, et cetera. And I remember being really proud when we moved in. And that was 8 years ago. Now when I look at the office space, I'm like, damn, I'm in a Dilbert cartoon. And what went wrong? And so it actually started from a complaint. Now the right complaints lead to the right solutions. So not all complaints are bad. And we got a complaint. I said, hey, we're running out of meeting rooms. I go, but we figured this all out. And what has changed in 8 years is 8 years ago, we used to work in very functional ways. We had a product team and a marketing team and a tech team and a sales team, and they were all functionally there. Today, our teams increasingly work in cross-functional small groups. So they're meeting and they're interacting, they're getting people from different disciplines, they're solving problems ad hoc or on a permanent basis. So they need to get together. And we didn't have that level of interaction. So now everyone's like, hey, something's wrong. We're running out of space. We need something different. So let's sensitize ourselves to this complaint, this problem, see what we can come up with. So, observation one, when you take it back. If I look at our floor plan, 70% of our space is dedicated to fixed cubicles, and about 30% to these meeting rooms and common spaces, right? So, okay, we've got a lot of fixed cubes. Observation two, hold on, there we go. I was talking to a consultant, and the consultant said, hey, for the next month at 10, 2, and 4, look at the cubes and count how many are vacant. And I did this 10 times. I'm like, wow, consistently 40 to 60% of the time, no one's in those cubes. They're in meetings. They're on vacation. They're on the road. Even my legal teams, we never go anywhere. I was like, well, you guys aren't at your desk. Right? So I'm like, hey, for whatever reason, they're empty. So why do we have so? And what killed me about habituation, I've been in there for 8 years. So no joke, I must have looked around 10,000 times over those 8 years and seen all this vacancy. But until someone told me to measure it, I'm like, holy crap, no one's in the seats. How many times did I not see this? And it's so obvious now, I feel like an idiot. And that's what habituation does. So I said, okay. Observation 3. This is our lunchroom. The majority of the time, it is 100% vacant, and it occupies a lot of space. So, what's the conclusion? Well, we don't really need all this fixed cubicles that's unutilized in these small group of areas that people are scrambling for. So let's blow up the whole fixed cube space. So these are some of the ideas. And we said, instead of coming to an office and then figuring out where you want to go to this one set area, we want to reconfigure it. So you come in, how do you want to work today? So let's say you have to do a TED speech talk and you need some time alone. Then go to the library. The rules of libraries, you don't talk, right? You have some time alone. There's other areas that are most social. Let's say you have a kink in your neck. Well, then go on a treadmill. Get on a Bosu ball. Go up or down. But how do you feel today? We want to configure it to how you feel today and adapt to it. And with virtual desktops that you can biometrically log in and cloud storage and filing, now people are freed up to move wherever they want, right? And interact in ad hoc ways. So if you look at what that can do, if I take that 70% fixed cubes and on the low variable utility, I could lower it by 40%. All of a sudden, that 70% space now is 42% of space. That lets me go 30% more in meeting rooms, 30 goes to 39, net reduction 19% in square footage. Now, you don't actually reduce the space if you don't want to. Make it for amenities. Create something cool, like put a barista, right? We already got, like, wellness rooms, and there's a bunch of things you can do with the space, but you don't need it for this because it's waste. But what about the meeting rooms? Is it simply enough just to offer more meeting rooms? Or could you look at that too? This is a pretty typical meeting room for us. Table, chairs all around. It's really not that different from something in the 50s, right? Or something in the 70s. I mean, basically, we took whatever IBM did in 1920 or whatever, and we slapped a TV on one end with the video camera, and instead of a whiteboard, we replaced the white paper on an easel and markers with a whiteboard. but it's a pretty crude evolution of nothing. So let's go channel that inner critic. What could we do differently? So if this is our current meeting room, first observation, you see this seat right here in between the table and the TV? That's what we call the dunce. No one sits there. No one wants to sit with everyone looking past them. So no one ever takes that seat, even when the TV's not on. 2, the best place for a video camera is actually where the screen would be, but everyone raises the TV so you're arching just so you can get it at the right angle. And 3, there's this weird domino. I call it the domino effect for video conferencing, where you have to put the shortest and skinniest people in these 2 seats because they block everybody else. Then what's the point of video conferencing if I can't see them, right? So what we said is, oh, well, what would you do just a little bit differently? I said, well, first, let's get 2 TVs, one for video, one for presentation, because video conferencing software, the thing totally sucks. But if we actually put the angles at a slight trapezoid, and then a camera on either side about midway, now you can have a fixed view and everyone can be seen, a fixed view, everyone can be seen. Because the other observation is these movable cameras that are really expensive don't work that well, right? By the time it catches up, someone else is talking. So it's much easier this way. The interesting thing that comes out here is you actually free up 25 to 30% of the room. Walk into a meeting and see how much space is dead, just so people can walk around. So we did that. We actually built a trapezoid table, and then the room looks really empty, right? It looks kind of lonely. And the reason is, before you had this space, now you have a lot more. And what we found is where we had 3 meeting rooms back to back, we can now fit 3 with the same capacity plus a 4th smaller one for about 4 people. So you don't even need more space. We can get about 20% more usage of the existing space, right? So nature has given us this thing, this learning mechanism called habituation. But it's a crude mechanism. It has unintended consequences. So much of our lives, this beautiful brain of ours, basically helps us execute our base desires more efficiently. And it's an interesting question whether you can actually elevate and use that brain to elevate above nature's programming. What I would say is, if this is interesting, you can start applying this to your life. And why? Well, as an entrepreneur, I would say the world is a better place if more of us shift from this dulling of pain to actually fixing the root cause. Right? So much of the world's broken. I mean, people always talk about how many millions of people walk through Grand Central before they put wheels on luggage. Like, no duh. I was like, oh yeah, first few million people didn't think about that. But it's not just about product. We have deep systemic problems. Gender inequality, racism, global warming, homelessness, mental illness. If you look at today, right, from today's lens, and you look at 100 years ago, society was abhorrent, like ethically void in many ways, right? We look primitive. The things that people would accept as the norm. I guarantee you our children 100 years from now will look at us and go, oh my God, they are so primitive. Because modern is just a frame of reference. You will always not be in the future. However, the sooner we get to releasing, feeling that pain, and going about fixing it, I think the sooner we create a better place. Thanks very much. Thanks for coming. Appreciate it.